Hello, and welcome to another Key Factor tutorial. I'm Sven, and today we're going to look at deploying cert-manager and Istio using Helm on the micro KH cluster that we cleaned up from the previous tutorial. So let's get ready to go and see how easy this is to deploy Istio and cert-manager with Helm and have some fun issuing mesh certificates. We're going to start in the admin web of EJBCA, and we're going to go click on Certificate Profiles underneath CA Functions, and we're going to reuse the ephemeral MTLS 14-day certificate. Well, we're going to clone that. And this was created from a previous tutorial we did where we did the ephemeral CA and how to revoke a certificate and still be able to do validation with OCSP. We'll click clone, and then we're going to type in the ephemeral client server 3-day, and we'll create from template, and then we'll go edit this. And we're just going to change the validity here to 3 days. We'll scroll down some more. We're going to adjust the EKU to also have server authentication. It has client server and server authentication now. We'll scroll down some more, leaving all the other settings how they were, and we can click Save. We'll go over and create an identity profile now under the RA function. So we'll select the ephemeral MTLS and then type the ephemeral spiffy, and we'll click the clone selected. Then we'll select the ephemeral spiffy and then edit. We need to add a common name, so we'll add that, and it's not going to be required. Then we're going to uncheck the required for DNS. We'll add 2 more for a total of 3, and then add 2 uniform resource locators, which the spiffy URI will use. We'll add the new 3-day cert here in the available certificate profiles, and then we'll add the my sub CA to the available CAs. We'll click Save. We'll update the RA Cert Manager role next, so we'll click on Roles and Access Rules and edit the access rules for the role. We'll add the ephemeral sub CA and add our new certificate, our ephemeral spiffy identity profile. Click Save. Now we can head over to the shell. We can click Home as well. And we're going to SSH to our micro KH server. Log in. We can take a peek at what we've got on here, and we have the other, the file system for the previous tutorial, so we're going to be reusing that. We'll seed into the cert manager. We can see the certs and YAMLs we did from the previous one. We can look at the namespace and see this is cleaned out as it's an updated. The cluster was reset from the previous tutorial, so it's only EJBCA and MariaDB deployed with Helm charts. We'll clear the screen. We'll create the cert manager namespace. Then we'll create the secret for the RA credential that the EJBCA Cert Manager will use. We'll create the additional secret that is used for the EJBCA Cert Manager to connect to EJBCA over TLS. We're going to run the Helm update repo to update all the repos that we've added. So those add, and then we can install the CRDs, the custom resource definitions for Cert Manager, and then we're going to go ahead now and install Cert Manager with Helm. We'll install the latest version at the time of this video, 1.15. Cert Manager is installed. We'll clear the screen, then we'll install the EJBCA Cert Manager issuer. That installs with Helm. And then we'll create a service. Since we deployed EJBCA with a load balancer service type from the previous tutorial, we need to create a service now for anything inside of the cluster to be able to access EJBCA. And this service will bridge the gap here that will then point to the EJBCA service pod to allow the EJBCA Cert Manager issuer container to connect to EJBCA. We'll create the YAML file here, then we'll apply the file. Now that that's created, we can create the Istio system namespace, and we'll create an issuer inside of there that's going to be used to issue that new certificate type. Next, we'll apply that issuer. So that applies. We'll clear the screen. And let's review what it looks like. You can see it's there, ready to go. Clear our screen again. Now we're going to create the cert-manager role that will allow for the approvals. And then we'll apply this. And then the next role we create for the approvals, or for the issuer on that side to go. That way, if you're in a cluster and want this to just auto issue, this takes care of that for you. And then we'll apply this. We'll clear the screen again. Then we'll pull down the CA chain from the RA web and we'll cat that out. And this is our ephemeral sub CA chain. We've got those in there, and this will be mounted or put into a secret that is put into all the Istio containers, and we'll create the secret. Or I should clarify, it's put into all the containers that are deployed in the mesh so they trust this chain. The next thing we're going to do is use Helm to install the cert-manager istio-csr. This is a critical piece because this is how you bridge the gap with using cert-manager in Istio to then support an external issuer. And we deploy this with Helm. That installs. Now we're going to add the Helm repo for the Istio. So we can use these charts now, and we'll install the base Istio. Then we deploy the CNI with Helm. We're using this Helm to deploy this Istio CNI because we've got Calico is our networking mesh in here, and that's required. If you're not using Calico, you don't need that. Next, we're going to create our override file for Istio. It's a nice big long file, and you can find in the tutorial docs. And then we'll deploy Istio with Helm instead of Istio control like we used to. And that's how easy it is to deploy Istio at this point using Helm. Pretty simple. We'll open a new tab now, and we'll log in to the MicroK8 server. Let's take a look at the namespace for our CA so we can grab the pod name. That way we can start tailing some logs to watch certs get issued. We'll change this to logs-f and put in our pod name. Hit enter. Oh, these aren't the logs we want. They're the web server. So let's Control-C, up arrow, add -C for the container and EJBCA-CA. Now we've got the container logs for the CA. Perfect. This is what we want to see. Instead of just connections coming in, we'll switch back to the other tab. We'll clear our real estate out, clear the screen. And now we'll create the PKI mesh namespace. We're going to deploy the sample apps. So we'll deploy, or actually we got to enable the Istio injection into the namespace. Then we're going to deploy the Istio sample HTTP bin app. So we'll deploy this. And then we'll deploy their sample sleep app. That's deployed. And now we're going to see that it's coming up. It's not quite ready yet. Give it a few seconds for it to come up. We can check the logs over here, and we can see now that there's a certificate issued in the mesh. So our integration's working, but let's see if we can connect pod to pod. So we'll go back to the other tab. We're going to run 2 commands to create an export variable, and then run a curl command after we clear the screen and see that the pods are up. So we'll see the pods are up. Now let's do the connection test. So we paste the commands in there and hit enter. And voila. We now have container to container or pod to pod talking at this point with Istio, cert-manager, and EJBCA. And there you have it. Another fun tutorial of using EJBCA with Kubernetes and cert-manager and Istio to do PKI meshes and how simple it is to do all of this with Helm. All right, we'll see you in the next tutorial, guys. Take care.